Now, on to one of our main stories. This is a big one. And I think this is going to end up being bigger than a lot of people realize for a couple reasons. But for me, I think what this is really about is focus. And I think that that's, again, another aspect that the Hedera ecosystem's been missing is we've been through this long period of a lot of experimenting, catching up in a lot of ways, but also like innovating beyond where people are and others. But there's this new element of like focus that's needed. And I think that's been tough when you've got the founders, Leemon and Mance, really being co-CEOs. The amount of like just boring work that you have to do every day that you could spend instead on working on the next big thing is crazy. So I think that there's that need for focus. I think it's felt everywhere. And, I think Swirlds Labs feels it. So they have a new CEO. They've announced that Eric Piscini has been appointed as the new Swirlds Labs CEO. And again, I think this is massive. And what I want to do is just give this a quick read, and then I got 2 quick clips I want to show you. But I think that will kind of put into perspective who this guy is and kind of how he's going to fit into the Hedera ecosystem. So basically, today they announced the promotion of Eric Piscini from COO and CRO to CEO. Hold up, rewind. The fuck did I just say? So COO, Chief Operating Officer, CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, and CEO, obviously, Chief Executive Officer. So this is cool because this guy's been at Swirlds Labs for like 10 months or a year or whatever as Chief Revenue Officer and Chief Operations Officer. Like a CEO is basically the Chief Operating Officer with extra steps, right? It's like having that skill set of being a Chief Operating Officer is really important. And then also the Chief Revenue Officer. What's something that we're always talking about in Hedera is the need for the network to generate revenue. And then also for Swirlds Labs as a company, obviously wanting to generate revenue. So I think that having somebody that's focused, by title previously on, operations and revenue, I think that's really an area that we've wanted to have focus on. So him being CEO is great. And then this is like the part that I think is even more important that I think cannot be lost on people is with this appointment, co-CEO Dr. Leemon Baird takes on the new role of chief scientist, exclusively focused on the technical development of the network and related products and services. Co-CEO Mance Harmon will serve as chairman of the board of Swirlds Labs, focused on strategic projects and company growth. So what this also is, and the best way I can kind of articulate this in my brain, is what this is about is this is Mance and Leemon going back to where they were when Hedera started, right? They're going back to the beginning. They're Leemon and Mance have been on like this crazy adventure, right? They started Swirlds and then they developed a Hashgraph algorithm. Then they turned it into a public network called Hedera. They started working at Hedera. Then Swirlds Labs was created. They moved to Swirlds Labs, and they've just kind of kept moving forward in this trajectory. But there has always been this kind of nostalgia in the ecosystem and community of like, oh, do you remember when Leemon and Mance were just like, talking about the future and dreaming big and all these big things and stuff. And now it's like we don't see them much, or there's, and that's because they've been grinding it out as CEOs, right? At Hedera first and then at Swirlds Labs. And so when you see this stuff like the word focus, right? When you see the words in the sentences like Leemon Baird takes on the new role of chief scientist exclusively focused on technical development, right? Mance Harmon is now going to be focused on strategic projects and company growth. So like, this is where we want these guys, right? Leemon and Mance are very important for this ecosystem, and they're going to be just not bothered anymore as much because that's, they can go off in their corner and go back to what they do best. So I think that's fantastic. So there's some quotes from Leemon, Mance, and Eric, but I think what's best and what I kind of want to do real quick is shift it to kind of like more to Eric Piscini, because this is a guy I think we're going to be talking about quite a bit. Maybe I'll try to get him on the show, but this is a guy that I think a lot of people in the ecosystem that aren't like hardwired into this ecosystem, but he came from Swirlds Labs, but then like, what's his past? Like, who is this guy? And so he's been in the blockchain space for 10 years at his own startup, but also at IBM and Deloitte. And I know that the name Deloitte comes up here and there in the Hedera ecosystem, and it does yet again. And I think a great way to kind of like illustrate this is when I was researching this, I found this 8-year-old video of Eric Piscini posted by, I imagine during his tenure at Deloitte. And this was posted to the Deloitte YouTube channel. And this is the new Swirlds Labs CEO 8 years ago talking about blockchain and what it can do. And this specifically, what he talks about is very interesting. So let's listen in. Let's watch.
Ledger on a blockchain-based solution. Loyalty and rewards are a great example where blockchain can be applied to change customer behavior. Think about when you go to a plane, when you go to a hotel, when you use your credit card, you get points, but you get points in a few days, maybe a few weeks after the event, after paying or after traveling. With blockchain-based technology, because it's real time, we can consider an environment where you would deliver points right away to your customers, and you would be able to generate a new type of behavior from them. Example, I go to a hotel, I check in, and I don't wait days to get my points. I get points right away, and I can use those points on property to use for food and beverages, to go to the spa and other things. So now as a brand, as an organization, I am able to drive different behaviors from my different customers. And I can deliver those points based on who you are, where you've been, your status, and I can tailor those experiences to you because now I have access to that capability with the blockchain.
So that's, again, 8 years ago, Eric Piscini at Deloitte talking about points, right? Does that ring a bell? Let's flip forward. Let's go forward in time to present day. What are we talking about right now in the Hedera ecosystem? HCS 20 auditable points on the Hedera consensus service. Like, this guy clearly has kind of been on the nose with stuff. And this is, again, him talking about blockchain before Hedera even existed, before Leemon gave his talk at Harvard. So now I want to flip forward to a second clip again. And I think these two clips will kind of illustrate who this guy is. This is a 10-month-old clip now. This is a clip of Eric Piscini in his role at the time as COO and CRO at Swirlds Labs, being interviewed at Consensus by our good pal King Solomon Genfinity. And he interviews him, and let's listen to the question he asks him. And this is kind of, this is a little bit of an older, wiser, and HBAR pilled Piscini, and he's at Swirlds Labs, and he's talking about what's going on with blockchain. So let's listen to this now.
Yeah, 100%. I think last but not least, I would love to hear, and I think the audience would love to hear as well, what are you most excited about? I guess both from your position as Chief Revenue Officer within Swirlds Labs and for the ecosystem as a whole moving into 2023.
Oh, wow. Do we have an hour in front of us? I'm excited about, I would say, 2 or 3 things. So the first one is the evolution of the technology, right? And direct is a big one to me because I think what I've been struggling with for the last 10 years when I engage with my clients and the ecosystem is how do we bring more people to the ecosystem, right? Yeah. And direct is going to be a game changer because now you can engage in the ecosystem and know that if you lose your private key, you can recover it through a mechanism that Dr. Leemon invented. That is a game-changing thing. So that's number one. I think number two, which is associated with this, is the fact that we have more and more tools on the platform to accelerate the adoption of the platform. And that's really important, especially in the enterprise space, because people hesitate still to build, and if they have the right tools, they're going to build faster. So I'm excited about this from a technology point of view. Having more council members is also very exciting because that validates even more the business model, that decentralizes the business model even more, and that gives more credibility to our ecosystem and all of us. And then the last one is, I think, the community, right? And I'm still new, so I'm still discovering the value set of the community and the excitement, but what I've been seeing here is just incredible, right? The energy around the hedera is different from...
So this was, this was, you know, a 10-month-old video. This was a fresh Eric Piscini in Swirlds Labs. And so it's like those two videos, right? Really like, you know, 8 years apart. You see a guy that's like he's been talking about the same stuff. He's on it. And one thing that was very interesting for me there was like, you can see why he's excited about this network in Swirlds Labs is he says like over all that time, his number one thing that he kept coming up against was, again, that lack of fallback if you lose your keys. And so I think that speaking to the power of DREC and why it's so good for our ecosystem is like, it grabs the attention of people like this and they go, oh, this is a breakthrough. And I think it's almost like a side effect. They end up also just in the hedera ecosystem. So I think that's great. And one thing that I picked out from the announcement was a quote from Eric, and he said something that I thought was interesting. I think that what he said is, quote, "I'm excited to work closely with our entire brilliant team to aggressively advance network innovation and ecosystem development." So there's some very careful wording there. And I think that this to me is coming from someone that's kind of, and again, this video from Genfinity is 10 months old. So I think that over those 10 months, I think this is somebody that really understands the pain points of the ecosystem. And I think this statement is a direct response to it, right? Like what have people been screaming out for, right? We need more tooling. We need this network to be built out. We need, you know, community nodes. We need all this stuff. We need these things. We need to move faster. We need to be more aggressive, right? And so I see a statement like this from Eric, and he's saying, I'm excited to work closely with the team to aggressively advance specifically network innovation and ecosystem development. Like, that's some good stuff. I like the word aggressively. I dig it. And also too, this is, you know, worth bringing up just because I think there can be some confusion for people. Swirlds and Swirlds Labs, two different companies, two completely different companies. And for context, Leemon and Mance started Swirlds, which developed the Hashgraph consensus algorithm. Leemon and Mance left Swirlds and went to hedera. And then they left hedera to a new company called Swirlds Labs. So to be clear, you know, Swirlds Labs doesn't sit on the governing council. Swirlds sits on the governing council. Eric is not the CEO of Swirlds. He's the CEO of Swirlds Labs. So Swirlds Labs has no influence on the governing council at all. It's Swirlds, the other company, that does. So if people were kind of like, oh no, who's this guy? Is he going to vote to, you know, raise the amount of HBAR that can be minted or blah, blah, blah? It's like, no, Swirlds Labs doesn't sit on the council. And you can see it here from Christian Hasker tweets out from Swirlds himself. He says Swirlds Labs is a separate company from Swirlds Inc. and does not have a vote on the council. So there you go. But yeah, excited for the Swirlds Labs CEO. And I think that a good first step for him is like hop on a Spaces or like, you know, dive in, jump in. I think that getting the community behind you is important. We've learned that, you know, there's a lot of success that comes from folks in these types of positions that kind of get the community behind them, because they can be like, that can be really powerful. So I'd recommend that. A good example of someone who's done that, of course, we talk about Charles, the president of hedera, but, you know, that comes with experience in marketing. Being at all sorts of, his track record, he's very experienced. So basically what Charles says